Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News with Bleed Esports confirming their roster just the other day. FNS has now given his thoughts on Ye's new team, saying that on paper they should be okay, but he doesn't believe they're going to be anything spectacular for the new season. Big questions also as to where FNS is actually going to go. NRG right now are crying out for a player like FNS, but it does not seem like he wants to return. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for all the new support over the last couple of days. Love to see it, and there's plenty to get into as always. Firstly, on the Game Changer side, Disguised DSG, they have a Game Changers team, they're running it back again. So, the main event started yesterday, and it was going pretty interestingly, actually. We'll see it in a second. But G2 goes in. They effectively needed, I think you need like 130 points or something to qualify for the World Championship, the Game Changers World Championship, which is coming up right at the end of, I think it's at the end of November, isn't it, in Sao Paulo. And G2 goes and actually got through here to this Stage 3 EMEA, starting in the losers bracket, but they did enough, right? So if you win this, you also qualify to the World Championship in Sao Paulo, but G2 goes and just needed to get enough points on the board after doing well so far in the season, and they got this victory last night to move on to the tournament, and that was enough to get them over the line. So yeah, haven't been probably on fire lately, but a 13-9, 13-6, that was job done for them. Just to also clarify, we did see just yesterday that Ludwig was indeed saying that there will be another show match in place, probably the end of October it's going to be, so we're looking at maybe 3 weeks time possibly until this happens. But the new Sentinels that will be grinding, I imagine that TenZ is maybe, is he well now? I don't know, like is he improved? Because we know that he came back and apparently got everyone on the team unwell because, he had obviously picked something up as he always does. But you'd imagine their practice is going better, and of course Moist x Shopify are looking good to try and take the next step. They played that show match against Cloud9 the other day. They're going to play another one against Sentinels relatively soon, and that'll be an interesting test for both rosters. This also big news on Team Liquid, and Liquid right now are looking pretty good on paper, I've got to say. We'll look at their full roster here in a second, what they're looking to build. Mystic has apparently reached a verbal agreement. So, as Alejandro says, verbal agreement, that is close enough to signing, but you never fully know, right? There can be verbal agreements that have been made, and yet when the contract comes to be signed, it doesn't always necessarily happen. But yeah, he's going from Apex, of course, who were very, very close to qualifying it for, through Ascension. They were in the grand finals. They were the favourites to beat Gentlemates in that grand finals. Gentlemates won. They qualified for the Franchise League, and therefore quite a few of those guys in Apex are now going their separate ways, Mystic to Liquid included. And even as Safe says, who's now left Liquid and gone to Vitality, he gave his thoughts on, going to be a great duelist if you have great teammates. Your own skill only takes you so far. So yeah, pretty interesting analysis. Maybe he thinks that he's going to be able to get the best out of himself and his team on that Vitality roster compared to what he had most recently. These, though, are the latest Flynn spreadsheets, and there's really interesting stuff to look at because some stuff has changed, some stuff definitely hasn't, but a lot of these rosters, I just wonder what they're thinking right now behind the scenes. Let's start in the Pacific, actually, because only a couple of things to mention here, and we will get back to Bleed and Ye in a second. But we do have Frost as well, so Talent Esports, they're in an interesting spot. Some of these teams are pretty much locked in, DRX and everything like that. We pretty much know what they're doing, of course. Same with PaperX and T1 elsewhere. But Talent Esports, they're looking to build a brand new team. Patafan has been linked here, which is interesting. But also Frost, right? Let's not forget, Frost was not that long ago the head coach over at 100 Thieves. There was some drama with him, comms stuff, and eventually he's finding himself possibly into the head coach role for Talent, which is pretty well done, I suppose, I would say. This is the EMEA side, and as we see, this is the Liquid team. So Redger is going to go to Giant instead. KC are still looking to shore up their roster, but Jampy, Enzo, Nats, Mystic, and Keiko, that's a pretty nice team on paper. So I think that I like this Liquid squad. As usual, EMEA are pretty stacked. I mean, the Giants team should be really good as well. Obviously, Foot Esports is nearly a Turkish super team with the exception of Alpha, who's still on Fnatic, and of course they should be the top guys. Apparently they're also close to signing a head coach now. We know that, of course, Mini stepped away basically, so he's going to be maybe assistant coach, or we're not exactly sure what's happening there. And yeah, Team Heretics, they're obviously Gen.G Fishy's now on their roster. Vitality should be pretty good. Na'Vi as well, a one to look out for. But yeah, I do like generally what Liquid are playing at here going into the new season, but the Americas are not so convinced at some of these rosters. Mainly, it's Evil Geniuses and the contract gel, which is holding things up. But one big change that has been noted is Jorgamo on G2. That is now less likely than it was before. He's got into the let's just say, unlikely kind of possibility range is what Flynn calls it. So there's still a chance, but it seems like EG's contract jail is so strong and the bars are so, tightly put in place and the padlock is so big that no one's going to be leaving. Which means, what do 100 Thieves do if they can't get Boostio? What do G2 do? Because Leaf is still linked here. And it would be a travesty, I think, if Leaf wasn't on a tier 1 team somewhere. So I imagine that will happen. But if Leaf doesn't go to G2 and if Jorgamo does, what does that mean for NRG? It's kind of tricky to say. I will say for NRG, and this is the discussion on FNS here in a second, that I don't know what happens there behind the scenes with FNS and Chet and Victor and Crashies. It seems like FNS and Som, they're a duo in their own right. They want to do their own thing. They want to form their own roster. And maybe FNS felt that he couldn't go any further with Victor and Crashies. And he's gone from the organisation now, right? They've released both Som and FNS. They're no longer part of NRG. But the issue is, you look at NRG's roster, and the rumour is, okay, maybe Stella is going to be the IGL. And they don't, outside of that, who knows? Because Demon 1 is probably stuck on EG, Ethan is probably stuck on EG, so what do you do if you're NRG? Honestly though, the players they have on NRG, like Victor, Crashies, Marved, they are very versatile players. And if you brought back in FNS and Som, just in theory, and for whatever reason, this is probably not going to happen, but if you could change FNS's minds, FNS, Som, Victor, Crashies, Marved. That's a great team, and I know that it's different. You've got Marved, it's basically last year's team, but with Marved instead of Ardis. But I think they could make it work, change the roles around. Those are very versatile players. I don't know, I think it's very interesting that NRG are probably going to have an inferior version of that, right? Because they're probably going to end up with Stella, and then they're going to have to find a player in Demon 1's position, which is probably not going to be Demon 1 because they're going to keep him on EG. So, I don't know, it's just really interesting to me what's happened at NRG. The idea that they've broken up, but actually it might be in the best interest of both parties just to run it back with Marv for Ardis, given the lack of options now. There's no Sadak, there's probably no Demon 1, there's no Aspas they were looking at. So, sure, if you can get those moves done, fine, drop FNS. But now it feels like, well, FNS is out of the league and he's not coming back in anytime soon because, who's going to sign FNS and Som mid-season? Feels unlikely. It's possible, but it's unlikely. So I must say I'm somewhat surprised that things are seemingly ending here for that roster as they seem to be. However, FNS also was giving comment on stream on other rosters. He talked about Marved and said, I guess I should root against Marved because he's going to be on a different team now, so praying for his downfall. But also was asked a question on Bleed Esports. How good are they going to be? Will they be any good at all with Ye at the helm of that team? And FNS, well, he doesn't seem convinced they'll be spectacular. He says he thinks they'll be fine, they'll be all right, but he doesn't think the Ye's going to be able to lead them to do anything special.
Do you think that Bleed will do well? I guess I should have put 2 and 2 together. I think they'll do alright.
Last night, bro.
Shut up,
Tottenham
dude.
clears you, bro.
I think Bleed will be alright. I mean, I don't know. We just have to wait and see. I don't really know. It's such a gamble. Chat, technically I should be rooting against Jimmy, right? If he joins the team this year. Because I can't have him win without me.
Facts.
This is like a Jimmy hate zone. Not hate, but don't root for him. Root against.
So do you guys agree with FNS's perspective on this Bleed Esports roster? It's definitely an interesting team, right, to bring in Ye into the fold here with a couple of players that Ye has. Something, Scary, for example, has some experience playing against. And Ye, it was a really cool video, actually, that he did with Bleed the other day. Went up on the YouTube channel, kind of discussing why he's made this move, his thoughts on the future of the roster. And the intention for that team in the immediate term is just to qualify for an international event. I think winning an event, it takes time. Yes, Bleed Esports' goal is to be the best team in the world. They're certainly making the most, well, they're putting in the most money in the world. Probably not making the most money in the world yet. But yeah, that's their intention, to win things, to win champions, I imagine. But I'm sure they have some degree of patience. They had to grind out through the tier 2 side. They got that done. They won Ascension. They got through. So now is the next step of their process, which is pretty much qualifying for an international event. If they come top 2 at the start of the season, they will get through to Masters Madrid. Only 8 teams at Masters Madrid, so you've got to be top 2 in the Pacific, which is tough. When you've got teams such as DRX, and they're really good, historically, domestically as well, and then you've got PaperX, top 2. is a bit of a challenge, and obviously there's other great teams in that region as well. But if they can become the third, fourth best team in their region, which I think is definitely plausible, then they could be in a position to qualify internationally, and then they can take steps forward from there. So yeah, what does fine or alright qualify as? Does that mean middle of the pack team? And honestly, a lot of the teams that come through from Ascension will be expected to be middle, lower end of the pack. That's, in theory, how good they should be. The thing is, though, Bleed, they've got big players and they've signed these guys with big money, and it's money that some of the other teams can't necessarily afford. So that's why I think the Bleed should be a better than average team in the Pacific. I think that it might take some time. We know that there's some concerns given what happened with Ye on DSG as to whether the chemistry is going to work this time around as well. But I think that, yeah, for them to be like maybe top 4 team in the Pacific is a reasonable immediate goal. And if they can get to that point, they do have a chance of qualifying for some international stuff. And then we really get to see what they're made of, which is pretty exciting. I also think that, you know, the guard, now G2, should be middle of the pack as well in the Americas, I would say. Maybe slightly middle, lower of the pack, I guess we'll see. And then Gentlemates maybe a similar story. So if there is one team that's qualified through Ascension that I'm most confident in, it probably is this new Bleed Esports roster. But FNS doesn't really seem to know what to think and doesn't expect it to be spectacular by any means for his former teammate. But of course, Ye is in the league and FNS is not right now. And it just does confuse me why FNS and some have made the decisions that they've made, given the fact that they're now going to stream and not even compete anymore, when there is an organization out there such as NRG that they've got great experience with that might massively benefit from their services right now, given their struggles to find good replacements for FNS and SOM. They tried Sadak, you know, Demon 1, Aspas, but it's really not come to fruition. So very much enjoyed to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.